Please take your seats. Motion to reconvene.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Motion to adjourn out special call meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's unanimous. Welcome to this evening's work session. Appreciate your patience. The first order of business is to see if any of the commissioners would like to discuss any other preliminary items for the next BLC meeting. All right, if not, we will go straight into our discussion items. We will start with MARTA quarterly briefing. Mr. Colley Greenwood.
Good evening, Chairman Turner, commissioners. I wanted to thank you all for allowing us to spend some time with you. I promise it will not be very lengthy, but we will touch on some issues where we've found some nice progress. So I also, before I started, I want to recognize MARTA board members Catherine Powers and Valencia Williamson, who are watching online. So as we get into the typical agenda, we have operational updates and the 2040 expansion program. In terms of operations updates, we always like to show this for trending, keeping everyone apprised of how we've been doing in terms of ridership since the pandemic began. You can see in all modes except rail, this quarter we actually found the highest levels of ridership since the pandemic started. So in this quarter, bus and mobility and streetcar have all achieved the highest ratings that we've had since the pandemic. And rail too, with the exception of that slight blip in the last autumn of last year. There's just a small spike last year that actually outpaced what we've been doing since. But in every case, the best news is that this continues to be a solid trend towards pre-pandemic ridership. And we know that this result only happens when you lead with service. And so to have service, you need to hire your employees. And so our workforce update is here. Our recruiting continues. We're still hiring at least 50 operators per month. We're at about 101% now of the required workforce to put full service out. We're still dealing with an absenteeism issue, so that is something that the numbers are there, up to 29% and up to 31% in some cases of absenteeism. So that is something that we have now changed our track. We have started to hire some resources in the supervisory and management side to take a different approach when it comes to absenteeism. So we'll report out on that, the results of that as time goes by. When it comes to capital expansion, we'll start with the bus shelters and amenities update. Again, strong progress here. You can see in FY23, we need to have 30 completed, and FY23 closed up just a couple months ago. 12 are installed. The 14 under construction will be, within a month from now, will all be installed. And we have 3 left in permitting and 1 in design. In fact, the 1 in design is on Mount Zion Road, and its design will be complete next week. So by the next time we meet, all of the FY23 will be closed, and you can see below with FY24, we will already have some construction numbers converting into installations. So again, that's 30 for last year, 30 for this year. No doubt in my mind that we will meet this mark. And what it means is scenes like this. So this is on Best Road, and you can see the before and after. I won't go into the details. You can see what that means in terms of customer-facing differences. I just wanted to stop for a second and say we had some good work done here by the MARTA team. We had a request by the folks at True Value on behalf of their employees, and they were actually talking about a safety concern. And it's a good example of collaboration between MARTA, the county staff, and developers to advance transit connectivity and the city's greenway network along key corridors. So True Value had reached out to MARTA on June 28th via our board member, Williamson, and Invest Clayton to request a bus stop because in front of their distribution center, the nearest bus stop is half a mile in either direction, and employees had to walk on a regular basis to get to work with no sidewalks, and so you can imagine what that represents. And also there's a 132 unit townhome being constructed in the area. So not only will this bus stop serve its purpose, but the construction will also lead to some sidewalks along the area. And when you look at the bus stop itself, I just want to draw everyone's attention to it. You see the standard pole and the typical MARTA colors on that bus stop. I just wanted to share with you, for those that haven't realized the change, that this is what's happening now. So on the left, the traditional bus stop, and on the right, the new regional look. So we're making sure that all 9,000 MARTA stops have this look. Our regional color scheme and design is in effect. It's already in effect on our regional bus stops. But what it does is it gives you color scheme and design information on the customer blade, gives you route and destination information when you look on the customer blade. It also allows you to use a QR code, scan the QR code with your phone, and it tells you the route that's arriving and what time that bus will arrive and depart from that stop. It's also good customer information from the perspective of someone that's visually impaired, so it'll have braille and raised lettering, and it'll also be reflective, more reflective, so that the operators at night from a distance can see definitely that there's a bus stop there. So you can see there that the upgrade will be completed to all of our stops in the system by June of 2025. Just a quick jump over now to the Justice Center Hub update, and final design will be completed in the spring of 2024. We're really pleased with the progress that's happening here. We're progressing to final design, and Pond is the design phase consultant, so final design is expected to be completed in Q3 of 24. You'll remember that this is the improvement to the current quick build facility, better serve our major bus transfer point in Clayton, 8 bays, local bus, future bus rapid transit, articulated bus space, restrooms, vending services, police precinct, a canopy, customer service kiosk, and of course, lighting. So we'll be executing we have executed the work order. We'll be executing final design in the next 12, 15 months. Procurement will take 5 months after that, and construction 15 months after that. So there's your projected completion in 2026. On that site, I should also mention too that the site is adjacent, of course, to the jail's visitation area, so MARTA is currently engaged in ongoing coordination with COO Dietrich Stanford, Clayton County Sheriff's Office, and Clayton Building and Maintenance to amend the IGA to address safety concerns for both the quick build and the facility. So Clayton Sheriff and Building Maintenance staff will be consulted on the features and specifications of the permanent fencing. We'll also install and maintain cameras as the transit hub, and will grant or share access to the county sheriff's office, give them full access to the cameras. And again, MARTA liaison is coordinating with the project team and county staff on that. So the multi-purpose operations and maintenance facility, this is the updated schematic listed here. It's about $287 million in all to build this, and we are well on our way. So design progress continues in Forest Park. We're anticipating being on track to deliver this facility by 2026 as well. The facility will include parking for 250 buses, fueling for electric buses and diesel, a bus wash, a police precinct, a wellness center, and so we have full possession now of both parcels, and the condemnation process is underway for the larger parcel, with the last remaining tenant scheduled to vacate this month. All right, I'm trying to control this thing. All right, so introducing MARTA Rapid. We've talked about our BRT services, and MARTA's come to the point now where we're branding it. So henceforth, we will refer to it as Rapid, and Rapid signifies the move for high capacity transit. And we've talked at length about what this means in terms of getting people where they want to go faster in a more efficient manner, with dedicated guideways, off-board payments, level boarding, electric vehicles, a much more reliable time output in terms of time and reliability and headway in getting to where you want to go, and a much quicker build out. So we're very proud of Rapid, and we're excited to share that both the South Lake BRT and the State Route 44 routes will receive MARTA branding, MARTA Rapid branding, and colors. So it'll be, rapid silver line or rapid green line or rapid red line, whatever colors are determined through the process. And of course, we will be consulting with you all in terms of what Clayton's colors will be as we come on board with your service. So the first one up will be the South Lake Rapid Transit, and it'll be, the project status is listed there, and you can tell that we are, the City of Riverdale has adopted a transit supportive rezoning effort. And so those updates were adopted in July, which helps us support a higher potential FTA project scoring. We participated in Commissioner Anderson's developer roundtable on July 27th to better understand development challenges and opportunities in Clayton County, including transit-oriented development and future station areas. In terms of State Route 54, here's a 22 to 25 mile program. We'll be bringing that in by 2030 with approximately 17 station pairs, all that to be fine-tuned as we go through the development process. But public meetings were held on June 26th at the Morrow Center and a virtual session on June 27th with a total of 141 participants. The project continues with concept evaluation based on criteria related to existing conditions, land use, demographics, and environmental considerations. So we're evaluating different alignment options to address the project goals, and next steps include continuing soliciting input on the alignment selections, refining the alignment concepts, and returning findings to the public and the stakeholders, and also coordinating transit supportive land use updates. And finally, some recent events. Marta was really pleased to participate in the Citizens Advisory Board meeting. So the purpose of that is to provide feedback to the Clayton County Board of Commissioners regarding community transit needs and MARTA projects. So we did this on June 28th, provided overall more MARTA Clayton County project updates, and heard State Route 54 alignment feedback and outreach recommendations at the quarterly meeting. On July 22nd, we had the Back to School Bash, as we say there, at Commissioner Franklin's request, and we had a table at the district event. We distributed information about the More MARTA Clayton projects, we handed out MARTA ride guides and school supply giveaway bags to over 200 students. So you can see that depicted in the photo on the right. And of course, we've got, in terms of upcoming events, we've got 4 Gooder events, which is the provision of meals and fresh produce to various areas of the community. We are working with each commissioner to determine exactly where that's going to happen, and we'll make sure that those 4 events are well staffed and well stocked and well communicated. And with that, Mr. Turner, that concludes our report.
Are there any questions for Mr. Greenwood?
I have a question, just one question. I was gonna ask you, as we build out our different BRT stops, I noticed that, in Clayton County, we have a lot of cyclers and people like that. Is there gonna be like cycling along the BRT as well, along the BRT as well?
That'll be worked out as the process itself and the alignment gets determined. Where available, we will always make space for cyclists.
Okay, because I saw them on the plans, and I said, okay, this
Yeah.
is real neat.
Yeah,
So
as
I
long
think
as there's
our
no-
cyclists will appreciate that.
Right on.
Yeah.
As long as there's no safety conflict, with putting the energies of a bus into the energies of a cyclist, then MARTA's good
Yeah,
with
we'll
sharing
put
that
them
space.
all away. Yeah, I got you.
Far away,
All
yeah.
right, thank you.
Commissioner Hammer.
Yeah, well, it's not pertaining to your report, which was good, thank you. But what happened with the tree that was on the rails?
The tree,
that fell.
when
Or
was
the
that?
limbs or something? Yesterday.
Shambly? Yeah, I'm not sure which one,
I
but
was
Two
just wondering,
yesterday, so, yeah.
was the delay just to remove the tree, a limb or whatever, or did you all have to check the rails?
yeah, whenever
I
we have
never heard.
I'll speak in generalities, whenever we
Right.
have a tree down situation, if we see it encroaching, but it's not yet in the way, we report it in and we get a crew to come out and cut the limb. But in the event of, heavy rains and things get uprooted, when that happens, it stops service. We go out, we have to cut power, we have to cut the limb, and so we do clear as quickly as we can so that we can resume service.
So do you check the rails to make sure they
Yes,
haven't been damaged?
absolutely, yeah. We
Okay.
check for,
Yeah, I never heard of
interference with the third rail power, as well as any physical, rail bed issues that may have occurred with the fall.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir, for
Thank
your
you.
report.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Aerotropolis Blueprint 2.0, Mr. Shannon James.
Good evening, Chairman Turner, Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us. Today, for me, I won't be before you long. It's really to give you all context and background on how we've gotten to this point, which ultimately started when the county finished its economic development strategy over 2.5 years ago. Strive Atlanta was mentioned and highlighted during the workforce development component as a key partner to recruit to the region and to solicit potential services. The Alliance were dedicated partners to Clayton County, and so we took that charge on. We had great success with Strive Atlanta in Fulton County, specifically in the city of East Point. And so, Jamal and I have just been communicating a ton ever since. And so we wanted to really become intentional with this partnership, and so we reached out to the public school system. Superintendent Dr. Smith was very encouraging and enthusiastic about the potential partnership, as well as the Development Authority of Clayton County and the Chamber of Commerce. And so we've been coalescing and convening for several months. And so now what has happened, we've positioned ourselves to where all the partners are ready. And so our hope is that we come before you for a formal ask to really ignite this potential opportunity. And so Jamal Vales is going to lead us, and we'll look forward to answering any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Jamal Vales, Executive Director of Strive Atlanta, and we are pleased to be here. I live in Union City, have for the last 17 years. I've served on the Economic Development Authority Board, and Clayton has been our next door neighbor for a while. So glad to finally be bringing the work that we've done for Strive Atlanta to Clayton County. Our focus, and I'll work through the presentation, has been in the logistics space. And it is for us not about job entry, but career placement. There are so many workforce programs, as you may know, that will sell the notion of job placement. But for us, delving into what's really needed to galvanize momentum, to create those pathways to, yes, employment, but to upward mobility, that is essential to what Strive does and what we're looking forward to doing in Clayton County. I'll bypass all of these things that you have around our mission. Strive was formed in New York 40 years ago, brought to Atlanta in 2020, so just ahead of the pandemic. We have definitely been hazed by that virtue. But here in Atlanta, we have worked with, as Shannon said, we've worked with East Point, we've worked with the City of Atlanta, with Mayor Bottoms, as well as Mayor Dickens, in developing workforce programs that, yes, connect folks to jobs, but more deeply connect folks to career entry placement. And because of the focus on logistics that Strive has been able to have success in, and knowing the footprint of Aerotropolis, connection and proximity to the airport and the Aerotropolis region, it is what we would love to bring to Clayton County. As Shannon said, we have spoken with, for months now, superintendent, with a coalition of the ecosystem that is Clayton County, and are poised and ready to bring that to make a difference for those who are looking for opportunity with the support of the Board of Commissioners. I'll walk through what we are looking to do in short order. Ideally, it's a pilot cohort that we would launch in Clayton County that would support those that are looking for, again, opportunity in Q4 of this year. And so we have already galvanized the partners, employment partners, training partners. We partner with Atlanta Tech as well as Chattahoochee Tech for certifications that are industry bearing, that it's not just, again, the certification, but it helps to equalize that opportunity for those that come through the program. We primarily serve our Black and brown residents who, again, are looking for that opportunity. And because we have served a number of residents who have come to Strive Atlanta from McDonough, from Morrow, from Jonesboro, the notion of the need we know is there. Being able to set that off in a cohort this fall is what we're looking to do. I'll fast forward to objectives for this cohort and tell you about the two programs. One is our logistics and distribution channel. We provide forklift certification, OSHA, certified logistics, and so forth to get people entry to the workplace, but also what is the ladder for advancement? I don't want just the job, but how do I then advance? And what we do is then equip those to do that in partnership with Atlanta Tech as well as Chat Tech. And then on our other side of career path is our office admin program for those that are not going into distribution and or warehousing, galvanizing those supports. I'm going to scroll to the objectives for the pilot cohort in the fall. I have to thank Marta, who I did not know would be here, but you are one of our partners. We have provided free transportation to every student that has come through our program for 2.5 years now, over 300. Those are vouchers to the interview, to the first 4 weeks of the job, because I need to get somewhere, and Marta has been an essential partner. So thank you for that. And that's at no cost to them. It's not at no cost to Marta, but we appreciate the partnership that gives us a discount opportunity. But to residents, that is something that we give, as well as gas cards through BP. So there's no transportation barrier for us. Eliminating those barriers, those challenges that give a reason and a season not to proceed, that's what we do. So if you look at our supportive services, Casa Permanente has been a partner for the last 2 years. We provide free coverage at no cost to participants, to every resident who comes through the program and needs it. That's a resource that is unbelievable, but they have invested in. They're one of my core funders and partners to do just that. Whether it's mental wellness, if it's Georgia Justice Project around expungement for those with records, and we know that comes through the door as well. Again, mitigating those barriers so that you have no reason that precludes you from moving forward into what you want to do. That's for Strive Atlanta, the magic of what we do. And so to get to the objectives, working with partners is essential. I'll walk through our employment partners. They're with us from beginning to end, corporate partners as well as employment partners that are essential. Again, here is our Clayton County anchor footprint, those partners that for the last, I feel like, 6 months, we have been designing and developing what we need to do for the residents that are looking for, that opportunity. And there are more that are in place. Some of these are funding relationships, some of them are employment related, but ultimately we don't want to land in Clayton County. We want to be invited into Clayton and do it in partnership with. And so spending the time on the front end to develop those partnerships has been critical, and working with the Board of Commissioners, adding to that fold, would help galvanize this opportunity. A few of our employer partnerships, again, all housed in the Aerotropolis footprint, and some of them are, yes, entry, some of them have trajectories of advancement, but being able to work with this roster of employer partners who are looking for a pipeline, they're looking for talent, not to have to bring that in, but to build that from the community is what Strive Atlanta is looking to do in partnership with you. This got out of sort, but essentially for the cohort that we are looking to do this fall, we're looking to enroll between 20 to 25 students. That's our typical cohort size. We have had a 90% graduation rate. That's what we anticipate. We're going to shoot for the 100, of course, but knowing that all of the wraparound supports that are there to help mitigate those challenges will help us. Our graduates typically gain 2 to 5 certifications. These are industry recognized, nationally certified credentials that help equalize them in the employment space. And then our placement rate is 80%. So 80% of who comes through the door finds employment. And again, not just the job, but a career entry opportunity through Strive Atlanta. Our typical average wage has been about 17.5. We have some who, of course, are far north of that. But from an entry point, for those that are coming from the hourly job, coming from underemployment, it sets them on a chart towards something that they can grow to living wage and then sustain as a self-sufficiency measure. And so for cohort 4, which we're looking at doing this fall, those are the measures that we are looking to do in partnership with you all. Here's an objective that we can talk through in terms of timeline to build it. Our team is ready to deploy. We have begun cultivating those partnerships to identify the opportunities for those that come out of this pilot cohort that we would do together in partnership, with a Q4 launch looking at October. And so for the next few months, working with you all to know the ecosystem, know the centers of trust for community that are going to get folks in the door as the opportunity presents itself is what we're looking to do. And excited to do it. I'll share, just because who you see on this left picture is one of our pilot cohort graduates who has now been employed with Delta for 2 years, and literally was at Subway when she joined the program. So I won't talk about her wage increase, but to go from $8.90 an hour to a wage, a salary, benefits, not doing a timesheet is tremendous for her and her children. And it's what we envisioned for what we're going to do with Clayton. So if there are any questions, feel free. But I thank you for your time and consideration. And we're looking forward to making some things happen for Clayton.
Any questions from Mr. Viles?
Yeah, is Strive, is that an acronym?
It's not. Apparently it was in the 90s when Strive was formed. Don't ask me what it was because I didn't work there then. But no, it's just the name of the organization. Strive is headquartered in Harlem and still has been there for 40 years. We are in 11 states. Strive Atlanta I launched in 2020. We just launched Strive Birmingham in June. And just announced Strive New Orleans as our next footprint. So as part of our strategic plan, expansion and scale has been important, but being where, again, we are invited in, we don't just land and then say you gotta love us. And so Birmingham is doing well. It's been a month and a half, if you will, but New Orleans is the next. And so together, we're building the southern footprint that is Strive for Atlanta, Birmingham, and New Orleans, with Atlanta being the flagship.
So is this one of the projects of Aerotropolis, or are you all concentrating strictly on Strive and not on some of the other projects that you've had in the past?
Okay, so just to make sure to clarify, Strive was going to implement the program. The Alliance, this is part of our workforce development strategy.
Okay.
So it is a component of our work, but they are the provider, I guess, in essence.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So what's
Great
the
question.
ask of us?
The ask is for, and I'm sorry, the budget that is included. Thank you for that.
I was just about to ask.
Okay, so in front of you all is the budget for this cohort. It is $100,000 to underwrite this cohort that provides, again, the training, the credentials, the opportunity and jobs for those within the budget. And I don't know if it's available to show. I can show you for that. About 60% of that budget is directly in the hands of participants. We provide weekly stipends during the training program, so you don't have to give up your life and hope it works out. There is a weekly stipend that includes the curriculum and certifications from Atlanta Tech as well as Chattahoochee Tech, and then obviously the staff that's deployed to do that. But ultimately, it is at no cost to who comes through the doors, knowing that there's a job on the end. That is something that most workforce development agencies can't do. But because for 3 years we've been able to, in the city, develop the employer network that's thirsty for a pipeline, being able to present one from Clayton County will be different because it's so focused on Atlanta, and that's where much of our work is. But knowing that there's a need here, as reinforced by the partners that are on queue, that is what we're looking to do here.
So does that money,
Yes.
is it earmarked for Clayton County citizens?
Yes,
or does
absolutely.
It go specifically for Clayton County?
Specifically and only. So I think the work over the next few months in galvanizing the community, learning those centers of where community comes from, those that have identified unemployment, that would restrict this funding to Clayton County, as well as North Clayton High School, which has been designed as the center of where training would happen on site. So it's going to be in the community, for the community, with nothing but Clayton residents.
So
Commissioner Abbott.
is anybody else in Clayton participating financially?
was my question. Yeah, so yes, LISC Atlanta is one of our funders, and they have identified a pot of funding for work specific to the Clayton footprint. There is discussions around particular sectors of training that can open the door to more investment, but yes, our funders have been thirsty, including United Way of Atlanta, on Clayton County. And so between United Way as well as LISC Atlanta and our funding, which is vast, the focus and restriction on Clayton County is the intention as a pilot. To do that, show the proof, demonstrate, and then we can galvanize a broader system of philanthropic support so that we can expand and offer this routinely. But this pilot is the opportunity to do just that.
So is anybody,
Go ahead and finish it.
okay,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry?
okay, are there other participants in your program? I noticed early on you mentioned East Point, I think. So who else is contributing to, say, we are Clayton, then what other,
Who pays
either
for Atlanta?
counties or
Yeah.
agencies or whatever?
You want the list of who pays for Atlanta?
No,
There's public and private investment. We have federal funding from DOL. We have city, state, and county funding from the city, from Fulton County, if you will. And then on the corporate lens, we're funded by Accenture, by Home Depot, who's also an employer partner that is interested in a pipeline from Clayton County, from Chase Manhattan, from Bank of America. It's a broad list, and I will share that with you in terms of who is invested in Strive Atlanta. But this as a pilot restricted to Clayton County, the notion of Clayton investment in this as a precursor to, yes, what can become a broader funnel is what we're looking here.
So how many participants do we get?
25. That's a typical cohort.
And they're coming from our school system?
The school is one of the partners. The age bracket is 18 to 24 and beyond. There is the Career and Academic Academy that is looking to establish a pipeline, but for many folks, it's the parents of those kids who are in need. And so everyone will be, yes, from Clayton County, referred by the host of partners that have been engaged so far.
So is the school system putting in anything in the financial side?
Not in the financial side, but they have given us space as well as a few of the resources needed to do the program. And so not having to worry about identifying a place within the Clayton footprint, because this could happen in Atlanta as it does now. We operate year round, we do cohorts all year. Being able to bring that to the neighborhood and do it here is what has been communicated as a need, so that everyone doesn't have to get to Atlanta in order to get the opportunity. And so the school system has availed itself as a partner in space.
So, okay. So how do we get the 25 participants? Do they come from Clayton County schools, Atlanta Tech, or
Hoochie. From Clayton County, from the school district, as well as neighborhood investment partners that are connected to community to identify those that have presented themselves as unemployed looking for that opportunity. So the recruitment funnel, the partners that are in development to bring that cohort to us, again, is restricted to Clayton County, and would look for and even ask commissioners where your centers of neighborhood and community investment that would identify those that are looking for opportunity.
May I suggest something?
Yes.
Since we are getting students and all from the school system, that we, work together financially
Yeah.
on this, if it's decided
was
by the board to, take this up
Yeah.
as a project, that we have more financial participants than just county government, especially since the school system will be, I guess,
Working jointly.
giving
Yeah.
the names of the students or participating. That's a big deal. And one other thing too, are we getting residents from the county? Are we getting,
Yeah.
so it's not just school?
Not at all. No, they are primarily the venue. They've opened their doors and realized that there needs to be a space embedded in community that is easily accessible by community. And so they've opened their doors and their school to us and the resources they're in. But in terms of the funnel into the program, it is from community beyond the school. The school is just a partner, a venue, and a partner as well.
Okay, do you all have something other than your presentation tonight that explains all of this from the initial beginning of the plan all the way through, that will
Sure.
tell us all these things, and your financial participant other than,
Yeah.
county government, and where you will get your people from, and all, just the whole explanation of
Absolutely.
your project, of Strive.
Sure, absolutely. Right, the whole,
Right.
yeah, absolutely. Glad to do that.
Did you have something to add to that, Mr. James?
Just really briefly, I think Jamal ultimately did it. I think the way we have to think about it is, this is a pilot. So I think salute to Chief Murkison, who has, to my understanding, one of the only pipeline pathway programs in the entire county. And so this, in essence, would be number 2. And the fact that the interest and from partners watching us work together, he mentioned LISC Atlanta. So LISC has also committed to $50,000 to help us support a second cohort. So there's already interest brewing by other groups who are watching us kind of form this interest and this coalition. So I guess the idea is the county would really serve as the county steward to get us started, right? You guys are planting the seed to say, hey, you're taking a risk in essence. that this could work. And our job is to make sure it works and work with the school system so that we're intentional about where it's located, but also how we're targeting the community specifically, so that it's very intentional about where we're pulling individuals and how we're helping to scale up mobility. So in essence, the county is, so I'll give another example. Perry Learning Center, construction ready. That was another program that was identified in the strategic plan that we worked with the Development Authority, Larry Vincent and his team, and now Perry Learning Center just graduated the largest class ever, just last month. I think it was 26 individuals. And so we're really excited about what's happening with Construction Ready. Now this could be, in essence, kind of 2.0, if you will, with Strive.
So if we're the pilot, so that means you have not started your program in East Point or Atlanta?
When I say pilot, I meaning Clayton County specifically. In Fulton County, we were able to start in East Point, and that's been successful, no question. And so now what we're trying to do is bring it to Clayton County, so now it's regional.
When did you start it in East Point?
2020.
2020, okay. And give us, you know, something about what's going on in East Point also.
Absolutely.
You know.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. What I'd like to see is the data. I'd like to see for you look at the data from what you guys have done at East Point, the effectiveness of the program, and also I'd like for you all to tell us how you track the outcomes of your participants. So because I'm real big on data, I like to see the numbers. So we, you know, like I said, and I wish y'all had bought someone that had been in the program. So you know, when you come next time, bring a participant. That way we can know, you know, where we can track that person. We'll know where they started, where they're going, you know, and where they'll be at. So please bring that data back or send us that data. So and then with these participants, I would like to see us track the outcomes of where they're going if we decide to do the program. I would like for you all to have that data, so as we move forward and open up, you know, different parts of the program, we'll have that data, and then then we'll feel more comfortable moving forward with you.
Sure.
I think you mentioned a young lady that was at a job doing one thing, and now she's
Yeah, they
a
mentioned-
salaried
yeah.
person.
Yes.
Yeah. Is
He
that
was-
person local?
Not to Clayton County, but she's at Delta. She's from Atlanta. But retention is important, right?
Yeah.
So for sustainability, for transparency,
Yeah.
so that you know the investment is not just spent, but that it actually is making a difference, we absolutely have retention data, and we'll share that.
Any other questions?
Thank you for asking.
Well, it's not a
I do have
question.
one. Who are some of your local potential employer partnerships?
So on the slide, you'll see from the logistics space, we work with the obvious biggies of DHL, of Amazon. More locally, there's Kuehne+Nagel, who's been a great employer. Fastenal has been a great employer. Future Forwarding has been a great employer. All of these centers of employment, of economic development that are centered around the airport in the Aerotropolis region has primarily been, from an entry point, those employers that are a pipeline for our graduates.
Thank you.
Well, I really would like for you all to go back and renegotiate with the school system too, and you know, and talk the money. I mean, they're providing space. I think you said we can provide space. You know, but you know, they could help on that amount that you have mentioned to us, especially since we are getting the students from, and we work together. We work with the school system, so if we could do that more with the financial side, that would be a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely well received. I will say that not presented in that 100K is the total cost, and Strive, through our independent funding, primarily philanthropic as well as government, are already supplementing that budget. The piece that you don't see, the 100,000 gap, is what is needed to implement as a seed lens, but the full cost, including all of the staffing as well as the certifications that are there, is well beyond the 100K. So I don't want you to think that you are solely investing, but we are looking to, yes, the county to invest as Fulton has, as other municipalities do, to make a difference for the residents. So we can definitely come back with that, and I agree with you. The notion of their investment can be certified, but there's more beyond that 100K, and we'll share that as well if needed.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a foundation
Yes.
that you might be able to tap into.
Yeah.
Commissioner Davis, did you have some?
No.
Okay.
And I want to say also that you can talk to Dak as well, and present the 100,000 to them as well, so, yeah. To
All
help
right. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so
both
much
of
for your time.
Thank you very much. And if you could, just email that additional information to all of the commissioners so we can peruse that as well. All right, next up is Lexi Poll Policy and Grants Management Solution. Chief Mert.
You ready, sir? Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Commissioners. So I wanted to go back just briefly to the board retreat that we had, and we talked about the need to standardize our current policies and get all of our policies into one area and convert some of those policies that are actually ordinances back into policies so that they can be all placed into one area and easily enforced by the county, but more importantly, to make sure that our workforce clearly understands where they can go find our policies so that they know exactly what is expected of them. So on the dais, I placed before you a sample, or not a sample, but kind of the work that's been done since that meeting and since the board approved us to move forward with the Lexi Poll system. So what you will see in front of you are all the policies that we have identified that will be included in what will be the Clayton County Employee Manual. And you'll see kind of as you go through here, everything that's highlighted in green are current county policies that have already been adopted by the board that we've incorporated and cross-referenced into Lexi Poll. The other policies that are not highlighted in green are ones that are a part of the Lexi Poll Policy Manual. We recognize that there are some duplicates in there that are duplicates of the civil service rules. So what we will be moving forward on from this point is taking some of those policies, crosswalking them with human resources and county legal, and then making sure that any policy that may be covered by the civil service rules are referenced as such. So when an employee goes to serve, per se, the grievance policy, when they click on that, it will actually refer them back to the appropriate civil service rule. And that's kind of how this will work. So the purpose of this meeting tonight, or this update tonight, is to let you know, A, the work that's been done to date. As you can see, there's a substantial amount of policies that we will be rolling out, but then to kind of give you a little bit of look into what they look like, and then also give you an update on the grants finder portion of Lexi Poll, which was a part of this that we talked about, and just kind of give you some insight as to how not only the COO's office, but the Office of Grants Administration will be looking and utilizing that. So as we talked about during the board retreat, one of the things about Lexi Poll and their policies is they're all rooted in either best practice state law, local law, or federal law. The ones that are rooted in state and federal law are automatically updated when that state or federal law change. So the beauty of the system is it constantly looks for updates at the federal level and state level, and will automatically notify us that one of our policies needs to be updated because of a change in the law. So it basically ensures for us that our policies are always compliant with the most current state and or federal law. And then of course our local legislation that we have will add into the system. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like, when we go down here to, I always use this policy because it's a pure federal policy, but it's one that we don't currently have now. But you can see when you look at it under every section of this particular policy, which this one covers lactation breaks, you can see where it says federal, which means that this policy is purely out of the federal Code of Federal Regulations. Lexi Poll recommends you don't alter federal policies because if you do, the minute the federal law changes, it doesn't know what to do with your policy. So a lot of these policies that are pure federally mandated that we have will simply be adopted as they are. But the beauty is if the federal government does change it, then the policy will automatically update. And that's kind of the beauty of it. Some of these that you can see are already listed in approval. Policy 606, Infectious Disease Management. We became very familiar with that during COVID. This is the policy that the board and the COO's office wrote during our management of COVID. And then, of course, the one that will start everything is just the policy manual. So this policy actually states that the county does now have a formal policy manual, and this will be the repository for board-approved policies that govern our workforce. And then in working with Ms. Pam, she was gracious enough to provide us Word copies of civil service, so all the civil service rules have already been added as an additional chapter to Lexipol. So as she starts to go through the rewrites or changes to them, they'll be all organized here. The beauty behind this system is anytime we release a new policy, it sends a notification out to every employee. Every employee has to go into the system, read the policy. There's an acknowledgement button at the end. There's a very lengthy paragraph that you have to read before you hit acknowledge that says that you've read the policy, understand the policy, had a chance to answer questions. If you chose not to answer questions, you do so at your own peril, but you are acknowledging that you have read and understood the policy. And then when you go back to kind of our home screen, obviously there's nothing here because we haven't released anything, but it will give you the status under reports, under policy acknowledgement, how many of our policies have been acknowledged, any policy overrides, which were things that we may have changed to a policy. And then we also have a program called Daily Training Bulletins, which we can go in and select policies at random, or the system will do it for us, and then it generates training that goes out to each employee and asks them, it provides the policy, and then we'll ask them several questions about the policy. So it's just literally about auto-training our employees on all of the policies that affect their workplace here at Clayton County. So this is kind of, we're at the process now to where Attorney Reed will be assigning me a lawyer, and we'll sit down and start crosswalking all of these policies and making sure that we're bringing them back to you. He and I kind of worked through it, so what our plan is to go through all of these policies you see listed on this. We will provide you a comprehensive document that gives you the policy, what's changed, if anything, and was there a corresponding ordinance that now needs to be repealed, i.e. our smoking policy. Our smoking policy right now is a policy, but it's codified in the county code. So that will now be moving over into Lexipol, and will repeal the county ordinance, so everything is housed in one central location. So our plan is to complete that, provide that package to you about 30 days in advance of us asking it for it to be adopted, so there's plenty of time to review and then bring that back to the board for final approval and adoption. And then once that happens, we'll start hitting the release button, and all these policies will go out to the workforce. And then they can start acknowledging them.
Any questions for the chief?
How far back do these policies go?
Chuck, I think the oldest one was 73
Oh, okay.
that goes back.
Right. And when was the last update? Or is this a first update?
Well, it depends on what ordinance or policy you're looking
Yeah.
at. A lot of them, I would imagine, still antiquated.
Some of these policies are new. We've never had them
Oh,
in the county. Some other ones that we will have been updated various times, but
yeah, because I'm thinking like the smoking policy. and-
Yeah, so like some of the policies that the board has done, like the travel policy, that will be implemented into Lexipol so that everyone can see that and have it, instead of having to try to look on the website to find it, it'll be right there. Chief Merkson, when we were looking through like our chapter 70, there is a portion on, I think, sexual harassment, and I think there's one on alcohol and stuff like that, substance abuse, that goes back to the 70s. So what we'll do is take a look at what's in Lexipol, look and see how much of it needs to be updated, what's currently there, and then we'll present all of that to the board, kind of color-coded, so you can see what was present, what's going to be changed, and then a clean copy to see what it's going to look like afterwards.
Question. What, on the policy types, what's the definition here of a Lexipol policy type and the agency policy type?
so Lexipol policy type, agencies are specific policies that we handed them and said you need to incorporate this. Like if you look at your screen, policy 622, which says countywide travel policy. So this is the policy that was just approved by the board. So we handed them the policy they did have a travel policy already in the manual. They removed it and replaced it with our policy. So what this is telling you is that a lot of these that say Lexapol policy right now, that means we either haven't amended it yet, or it was a policy that we didn't currently have
Okay.
to replace it with.
And also, you mentioned earlier best practice. Is there some type of query or some type of calculation that is used to figure out what's best practice for Clayton County?
Right, so as we go through these, that's the importance of bringing in human resources, county legal. We'll sit down and go through each one of these policies. When Lexapol uses best practice in a policy, it's because it's something that's typically done nationwide amongst all of their clients. Most of their policies have been litigated. They've been tested, they've been tried through the lawsuit and have stood. So that's kind of how they determine what seems to be a best practice within the industry.
Okay.
So for this particular manual, because they do 3 different manuals, they have a law enforcement manual, a fire manual, and then a local government manual. So currently we're customers under the fire manual, and now we're customers under the local government manual.
So not based off the characteristics of the county, but off of their clients that they have nationwide.
Off of their clients nationwide. But what we do then is we take that and say what works for Clayton County, and that's when we start making changes to the policies.
Also, you talked about updates. Does this track historical updates? Great.
Version histories, when you did it, who authorized it, who initiated it, and then who's acknowledged which versions.
Go ahead.
Generally, when I've worked on policies, will you all be sending them to us so we can actually look at them as well and then add to them or take away from them as well? Because you were saying it was based on Clayton County, so when I've done policies before, I've been able to go in, add, take away, and and put things and go from there. So we'll be able to do all of that.
Yes, ma'am. So that's what Attorney Reed was just referencing. When you get these documents, they'll be color-coded. So when you look at a Word document, it will show you, and it'll have a legend. Everything that's in black was already there. Green has been changed by the agency. Red was Lexapol verbiage. So it will tell you what's what within a policy. That will be that's why we wanted to give you, at minimum, 30 days.
Okay.
But we'll yield the process to the will of the board,
So
obviously.
There'll be a first read, a second read, or how will we do it?
So it won't be, we don't anticipate making
Us
home
read-
rule changes
Okay,
through
okay.
this policy manual. That's where you need the first and second read. These will really be more of either adopting policies you've already done and just inserting them in here.
Okay.
Or as I said, or as Chief Murkison alluded to, if there are policies that are in our Municode, like the smoking policy. It says smoking policy, but we have it as an actual county ordinance. So we might bring it to the board for you all to consider whether you want to remove that out of the county ordinance and put it within the within Lexapol as opposed to having it as an ordinance.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I guess my question is, what would be the benefit of that?
So just as an example, like the smoking ordinance only applies to county employees. So if you had somebody who was violating that policy, we go cite them under our ordinance violation. I mean, I think part of the issue is the reason why it was put in Municode is because the county has not traditionally had a policy manual. So to kind of put it out there for something that's not a civil service rule, it was put within the county ordinance. So, I mean, that will be for the board to determine whether you want to keep it as an ordinance versus moving it into the policy manual. But that's kind of usually your ordinance violations are things that you're citing somebody for and subjecting to them to a fine and prosecution and in magistrate court, stuff like that.
Yeah, but also when it comes to disciplinary action, when you have a smoking policy under this system, they'll sign off saying that they know the policy. And if they do it, then director could take some kind of disciplinary action against them. All right.
And then, real quick, Mr. Chair, the second half to this was I wanted to show you I wanted to show you the second half of this, what came with Lexipol, which we spoke about, which is our grant finder. So one of the things we had talked about with the creation of the Office of Grants Administration was trying to streamline our process for acquiring grants, searching for grants, and then managing grants. So along with our Lexipol subscription came Grant Finder, which is their app that hopefully is going to work. Here we go. So what this allows us to do is it searches about 8 or 9 different applications for a grant. So if we come in here, and let's just say that since we just talked about it, we come down here and we want to know what workforce grants are out there. So you can select workforce, you can come up here, you can select Georgia, and then hit search. Switch this to a table view. So it found 13 pages of grants that are specific or mention workforce development within here. So as you go through here, it will start to show you what the available amount of funding is, who's offering it, what the deadline is, and who's the administering authority. So when you look down in here and you see that there's this Jobs Plus initiative that has an August 21st date coming out of HUD, there's 22.5 million. So then once you click on it, then it'll pull up the program area, give you all of the details that you need to do. You can come in and ask for help. You can hire a grant writer or request updates or edits. It gives you the summary, all the program details, but then you can actually apply directly from this link. And then once we go in and put in all of the county specific number, our DUNS numbers, all of our federal grant IDs, it'll pull all of that data into the grant dashboard for us, and then consolidate all of our current open grant applications into one dashboard. So as we're looking to manage them, monitor them, figure out where we are in the cycle, important updates, renewals, it'll all be housed under one platform. And this cost us $1,100.
Oh, so we should be getting more grants.
So, yes, ma'am. And then as you click on a grant type, what it does is it then starts to consolidate similar grants from the same funding opportunity. So once you click on a grant, then it will tell you here's all the other ones that are coming from HUD. And this doesn't just do government grants. So as you start to go through them, you will notice there's private foundations that are in here. Now some are obviously specific, even though they say Georgia can apply for a grant from the Kansas officer of the governor. Once you get into it, you can't. But for some reason, it does list them all. But just for workforce development, the top 10 that I identified to the board recently was $1.2 billion in eligible funding. So the money's out there. This just gives us a much better pool of where to go look for it. So when you want to know, this is everything that it's searching. So it's searching Police 1 Academy, Fire Rescue, EMS 1, Corrections 1, Local GovU, Evals, Grant Finder, Cortico, Police 1, Fire Rescue 1. So these are all the different platforms that it's looking for to pull in grant opportunities that we can now go apply for.
This is excellent.
So, Chief,
Yep.
so do we have a grant writer in your, what is that, the resilience?
We have Ryan, which is as close to a grant writer as we've ever had, but he has he's become very good, although I'm not going to saddle him with that just
Well,
yet.
I'm just saying, since we know how to find them now. if
We do.
somebody
So,
can find
and
them.
for different grants, the cost to hire somebody who's familiar with that grant
pay
is
for
is
themselves.
nominal
Yeah.
when you look at it. But the difference now is it's centralized. We can get our hands on what the opportunities are, streamline them, make sure we're getting that information to the board, and then Linda, Ms. Boswell, through the Office of Grants Administration, will be working with Ryan and his staff to get through the process of the applications.
Well, what happens in some organizations is the grant writer is paid through the grants that they write and receive.
Yes, ma'am.
So we may want to think about that.
We're thinking about a lot.
Okay, great.
All right, any other questions? Thank you for that presentation. We'll move on to the next volunteerism policy from Human Resources. Ms. Ambles.
I don't expect my presentations to be as informative as our DCOOs was, but I can guarantee you that it will be brief. Both, we have two. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners, and especially good evening to our Clayton County citizens. We have two presentations, and the first one is our paid time off volunteerism policy. Let me share with the citizens and the Board of Commissioners what my mission is as the HR director. I want Clayton County to be known as a choice employer. I want people to want to come to work for us and to stay with us once we are here. And a lot of that has to do with the environment in which our employees work in. So HR is keenly focused on doing everything that we can to enhance our environment for our employees. I want to say that my team and I, we did research before we brought this before the board. We surveyed over 32 surrounding counties to see how many of those counties actually have a volunteerism policy in place, and only 3 of the 32, around 32 that we surveyed actually have this type of policy in place. And what it boils down to is increasing your employee value proposition. The purpose and objective of the policy, first of all, I want to say in dedication to Commissioner Sana Singleton Gregory, because she was definitely a true trailblazer. This is continuing the work that she and I started before she passed away. We do have a core belief here at the county to contribute to our communities and children. This policy would be a partnership among the Board of Commissioners, the public school, our employees, as well as our citizens, because we are investing in our children. The purpose is to increase volunteerism within Clayton County Public Schools, to provide meaningful community engagement, and most of all, to support our children. The framework is volunteering opportunities include teaching arts and crafts. I won't read everything on the slide. Tutoring, preparing bulletin boards, just a different variety of volunteerism opportunities. The participation criteria, we want to open it up to full-time county employees, part-time employees. We would like to consider them in the future. If you are on a performance improvement plan, definitely you won't be eligible to participate. If the employee is on a leave without pay status, a terminated employee, of course, cannot participate on our behalf. If the board recalls, Ms. Shakira Rice, she brought this before the board a few months ago, and I did inform the board that I would be bringing this back. Policy considerations, allocation of time on the 16 hours per calendar year. We do have an approval process in place. The approval will be at the department head discretion, and of course approval will be based on business needs of that particular department at that time. We do have record keeping documentation procedures that are laid out as well. The next step tonight, this evening, I'm just presenting it to the Board of Commissioners. I'm not asking for any specific action at this time. What we have done is we have submitted the policy to legal for their review and for their feedback. I would like to bring it back for vote on September the 5th, and at that time we will have the policy laid out for the board to be able to take a look at the policy. And that's it.
Any questions for Ms. Ambles? All right, thank you for bringing this to us. I think that will increase the engagement with our school system. Go ahead and go into your next one. I think you're next up for the Sheriff's Office classification.
And Chairman, you did, when you made that statement, you reminded me of something else I wanted to quickly say to the board. We have our results from our 2023 state interview that we will be presenting to the board soon, and it's consistent. Our employees definitely want to serve their community. That's one of the reasons they say they stay with Clayton County, because they love serving the community. Now, this one is on behalf of Sheriff Allen, and I got a text from him. He is off-site, so he could not be here this evening. I was hoping that he would be here so that he could provide some additional information. But this is in regards to a job description revision. Back up. So Resolution 2021-184, this provides an administrative process for classification revisions without any compensation changes. Anytime a position is reclassified that requires compensation changes, of course, we have to bring those to the Board of Commissioners for you all to vote on those. But for just title changes and minor job description changes, Resolution 2011-184 provides an administrative process for that. The way that basically works, the department head or the elected official submits the request to Human Resources for review. Human Resources works with the department head or the elected official before we present it to the chairman. And once the interaction between HR and the department has happened, HR then forwards the request to the chairman for his final approval. The chairman had several questions in regards to this particular request that he wanted it brought before the board for you all to be informed of it and to provide feedback. The current position is Sheriff Deputy 2. The proposed position title remains unchanged, still Sheriff Deputy 2. The purpose, we have not changed the purpose. The purpose remains the same. The essential functions of the job remains the same. One of the things that we are asking to change is the minimum requirements. We're requesting to delete must be post-certified and add must become post-certified within 6 months. Compensation changes, there is no compensation changes. Sheriff Allen's rationale is to expand the candidate pool to include those who are near completion of the post-certification process. HR analyzed the request, and we found that the request does not result in any negative impact for Sheriff 1 classifications. I think that was one of the chairman's concern. It does offer upward mobility for our internal employees. We feel that it expands the pool to external candidates. I think another concern that the chairman had is the impact that it would have on the sheriff correction officers, and these are two different classifications. They're not in a hierarchical structure. The sheriff correction officers are responsible for one thing, the sheriff's deputies are responsible for something totally different. So these two positions are on different tracks. Well, here is a snapshot of the classification. Deputy Sheriff 1 serves in an administrative capacity, and you can see the minimum qualifications there. This position is like a gateway for an individual to enter to begin a law enforcement career. As you can see here under the minimum qualifications, there is little to no experience needed to become a Deputy Sheriff 1. This position, as I stated, allows employees to seek their certification to become a Deputy 2 while they're gainfully employed. The Sheriff Deputy 2 serves more in a law enforcement capacity. Hired as recruits are already certified. As you can see, the minimum qualifications there is a little different. We are requiring 5 months of experience, training, or working within the sheriff sheriff office, and the deputy does become post-certified. And I was hoping that Sheriff Allen would be here so that he could provide additional information, but he does send his regrets. He is off-site managing a particular case.
All right, so let's go and address some of my concerns in reference to this. Let's go back to the slide. It's either 1 or 2, I think it was. Go to one. Okay, and go the other way. Right there, hold it. So his request is to have a change in the proposed position of Sheriff Deputy 2.
Yes, sir. The request falls under the educational component of the job description, where we are deleting must be Georgia Post certified to adding that they must get that Georgia Post certification within 6 months.
So they basically would be a Sheriff Deputy 2 until they get at least the certification within 6 months. Now go to slide 5. Now, does he have a Deputy Sheriff 1?
We have a Deputy Sheriff 1. And what you'll find there, as I said earlier, that's like a gateway classification for employees who may want to become a Sheriff Deputy 2. But you have some employees that are sitting in the classification of Deputy Sheriff 1 who has no desire to continue on. They're satisfied where they are, and as you can see up here, they are serving more in an administrative capacity than they are for a law enforcement capacity.
But what I was told is, okay, if you have somebody that's a correctional officer or even the administrative staff, if they've been there, let's say a year, then they can automatically move not into a Deputy Sheriff 1 position, but a Deputy Sheriff 2, and then have 6 months simply based on the fact that they have had 5 months of experience or training or worked within the sheriff's office.
Yes, sir.
So they coming in as a Sheriff Deputy 2, as going from administrative, instead of going from Deputy Sheriff 1, which would be basically a recruit level. And, you know, I'm speaking and thinking about it from terms of the police department. Police department hires in a recruit at level 1, and then once they graduate the academy, they go to level 2. Now, he has that in place here, but he wants to have anybody who's worked there for 5 months plus to be a Deputy Sheriff 2, which is a higher pay grade than going in at 1, not even knowing that they're going to be willing to get their certification within 6 months or even be able to. But in the interim, they will have received 6 months worth of pay at Deputy Sheriff 2. And then they say, okay, I changed my mind. I don't want to get my certification. I'll go back down to Deputy Sheriff 1 or back to my administrative position. That kind of is like backwards to me. That's my concern.
Well, for the employees who are sitting in the Deputy Sheriff 1 position, if they meet the criteria to go ahead and move over to Deputy Sheriff 2, then that's not stopping them. But let's say you have a Sheriff Services clerk, and there will be another, I think we already have it scheduled to come before the board on the 15th, where the sheriff is requesting to reclassify 8 of his Deputy 2s to Deputy 1 position to open up more classifications for those who want that gateway to get their foot in the door. But the deputy, if you have someone sitting in Deputy Sheriff 1 and they meet the qualification for Deputy Sheriff 2, they're able to go ahead and transfer over. More important to me is you can have a Sheriff Services clerk or a security specialist who may say, well, I'm going to give this a try. I do want to become a Deputy 2. I'm committed to getting my certification. I meet the qualifications, so I'm going to go into that position. The significance of that for me is for clerical positions, there's oftentimes not a real pathway for them to move forward. And we in HR, we've been talking about the different things that we can do that will help our clerical team to move forward, upward mobility. So that would give a Sheriff Services clerk that has served the time with us to say, you know, this sounds great. I want to give this an opportunity, and they can go directly in that position knowing that they have to get their post-certification within that time frame.
But isn't that the same for Deputy Sheriff 1?
Dep-
That's the pathway. You go 1 before you get to 2.
But-
so let me give you another example, though. So somebody has 5 years of law enforcement experience from outside. The sheriff hires them as Deputy Sheriff 2. And now, because I'm a clerk or whoever who's been working in the sheriff's department for 5 months, they're gonna have the same pay as that 5 years experienced person coming in as a deputy sheriff too. And I don't think that's right.
Can I ask a question?
Commissioner Davis.
This is not my area of expertise. What is the minimum to be post-certified?
Right.
To be post-certified, you have to you have to go through the basic
Have to go
Peace
through.
Officers Academy.
No, okay, I understand that, but
Post-sheriff
it says, what are the minimum requirements set by post? That's what I'm looking for. What are those minimum requirements set by post? Because my issue is that to do this and you not post-certified, how have we put our citizens in danger?
That's a great question, Commissioner. In the same way that we do with police officer recruits, they're not able to do certain things until they meet that, until they get their certification.
But looking at these charts, they can still serve in the capacity without being post-certified. Which means wouldn't their day-to-day job description and job activities be
No,
the
he
same
can
whether
keep, he can keep them in-house administratively.
Right.
But to your point, you have somebody who is hired in from another agency, already pro-certified, hitting the streets, doing the work, and then you got somebody who's coming from inside, only have 5 months worth of experience. They're getting the same pay sitting behind a desk.
But you have to think about that too, Chairman. You're saying 5 months, but you can have a sheriff services clerk that has been with us for 5 years.
And that's fine, but
It
you're
may
still not,
say-
you're still not a certified officer. You're not even a deputy sheriff one. You're skipping that part of it, and then you're going down. Now, for me, I would think during the deputy sheriff one phase, you're learning and finding out is this what I really want to do? And you've been in the police world before, and you know how many times we have trained up and put through academies, and they hit the street and they say, "Oh, this isn't for me." All the money we've lost, training, uniforms, the academy. Because now, when they hit when they hit the pavement, they decide then at that time that this isn't for me. So I'm trying to be vigilant of that as well, and just thinking about the structure.
I understand. And and as I said, Sheriff Allen, being the department head, elected official over the sheriff department, he probably could do a better job than I can as far as explaining the rationale. But one of the things for HR is that upward mobility of our internal people, and knowing that there's not always a straight career path for our clerical staff.
Mayor, Chairman, and I appreciate, your expertise because you've been police. But I think we're discussing something that we shouldn't be discussing because he's not here
Yes,
to
ma'am.
tell us or explain
Yes, ma'am.
what he's talking about or what he's requesting. So
Understood.
I think
Well,
just
we're not.
spinning
I'm
wheels.
just sharing.
I know, and I appreciate
One
what
rest
you're
of us
saying, but
sharing
we
our
just-
concerns.
we should
But
just
yeah,
put
it would
this on.
definitely be better if he was
Yeah,
here
he
to
needs to be here to
elaborate on
explain what he's
his
talking
mindset.
about.
I would like to hear his rationale as well, so can we just hold off on this for a minute and then let him come in and explain his rationale, then we can decide from
Yeah,
there?
it sounds like we're gonna move on.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Let's
ma'am.
move on. Thank you for
All
your
right.
presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, next up, we will have creation of a land review committee. Chief Merck. I'm sorry, Murkison.
I know we look alike, but I'm not Chief Murkison.
Is this short too?
Y'all about the same height. That's
I'm sure you was. Chairman and board, I just wanted to kind of set the stage for this discussion around the Land Review Committee. The purpose is that one of the things we recognize in most instances, we have a lot of requests from outside agencies and from different landholders in the county that oftentimes want us to take on their respective properties. Even though we have a lot of conduits in space from stakeholders, whether it's the Development Authority or the Land Bank or even the Water Authority that serves as landholders in the county, what we recognize that there's not really a conduit in space to ensure that we have a proper way of vetting that. So Chief Murkison will provide a presentation, kind of give you an overview of our discussion around a land review committee about what we would do to vet these type of requests to ensure that prior to them either being bought into the land bank or even bought into the development authority or whatever the landholder might be, we have a vetting process to ensure that said individuals have a purpose and is meeting the tenets of what the Board of Commissioners is looking for. So with that, I yield the microphone to Chief Murkison.
Thank you, Mr. COO. Mr. Chair, members of the board, again, I will be brief and move quick. But I did want to just start by thanking my team over at the Office of Resilience for assisting in putting this presentation together. That team, they came tonight to be a part of this. Ms. Kennedy Jones, who is our floodplain analyst, Deputy Director Fong Nguyen, and Chief Resiliency Officer Ryan Morrison are here. So this came about for a couple reasons. Mainly because, with the creation of the Office of Resilience and Sustainability, each board member has asked us numerous times to go out and evaluate issues, whether it's flooding, whether there's issues with properties. That's been mainly citizen-related complaints, but it's also morphed into some issues with county properties that we had intended to build county facilities on, but then realized we could not for various sundry reasons. So the COO and I talked, and he recommended that we come together and put together what will be the Land Review Committee that will kind of look at not only incoming properties, as he described, but properties we currently hold in the land bank. There's a litany of properties that are currently in the land bank that reside within the floodplain. So we need to take a deep dive into those and see what is the value to the county for it to be on our inventory, and then make recommendations to the board about how to move forward. So real quick, quick introduction, what the problem statement is, our proposed solution, objectives, and then benefits. So obviously a land review committee is responsible for reviewing land acquisition or disposal projects, assessing threats and hazards to the county. Clayton County currently does not have a comprehensive internal vetting process for reviewing land acquisition or purchasing prospects prior to making a recommendation to the BOC. This has led to property that is unusable, resulting in costly project delays. Why is this a problem? So without having a centralized and comprehensive system to evaluate potential land acquisitions, it leaves the county financially and legally vulnerable. Without an established land review committee in place, the county is subjected to uninformed decisions, resulted in costly project delays, environmental damage, inadequate infrastructure planning, financial burdens, and then legal issues. So a lot of the things we see with the weather changes that we're seeing right now is our floodplain is shifting. With the development that's going on outside of the borders of Clayton County, it's creating additional runoff issues, which I'm dealing with, and my team is dealing with in every district pretty much daily. So as we started looking at a lot of these issues, we started to realize that sometimes decisions that are made outside of our geographic borders are having devastating impacts on our citizens. So it becomes incumbent that we start to do analysis on potential land that we may be asked to acquire, asked to assume. When somebody comes to you wanting to give you free land, there's typically a reason why they want to give it to you for free, because they've owned it and realized they can't build on it, so let's give it to the county. Historically speaking, we've had a lot of properties that would make it to the courthouse steps for sale. Those either did not move, were not able to be sold for various reasons, so a practice in the past was they would just automatically deed those to the land bank. So while we have a large property inventory, how much of that is actually developable and buildable is somewhat questionable. So that's kind of what it is that we're trying to get our hands around, is how do we vet this using all of the resources within the county so that when you make a decision, you understand that this is a good fiscal and operational plan for the county moving forward to acquire that parcel. So our proposed solution is simple: the establishment of a land review committee that would be housed in the Office of Resilience and Sustainability, which would be an internal multidisciplinary experts to review, identify, and understand the threats, utilize GIS system tools to enhance decision-making processes, develop an analysis tool with grading metrics to ensure thorough vetting of land acquisitions and/or disposals, and then, of course, improve the overall land acquisition process and outcomes for Clayton County. So our grading metric will assess 5 key components of this: environmental impact, economic viability, infrastructure compatibilities, legal and financial considerations, and then community benefit. As you can see, we've outlined all of the different offices that we will be partnering with and collaborating with to come up with what our grading metric is. So we've created a comprehensive grading metric to evaluate potential land acquisitions within the county. The metric ensures a standardized and objective assessment of each prospective land parcel. Each of the 5 chosen set criteria is assigned a maximum score, resulting in a cumulative score of 100 for each land acquisition prospect. And you can see how we've broken that down between environmental impact at 20, economic viability at 20, infrastructure compatibility at 20, legal and financial considerations at 25, and then community benefits at 15. So each project that comes to the committee will be vetted against the metric that you see, assigned a score, and then a comprehensive report will be provided to the Board of Commissioners along with what the request is. So you will have a comprehensive report to look at as you make your decision as to whether or not the county wants to move forward with acquiring a parcel, or if we're asking you to dispose of some parcels, this will obviously be there as the reasons why that suggestion is coming forward. Just a little bit of the criterion has been broken down a little bit in deeper detail for you that kind of outlines who would be responsible for assessing that. So obviously environmental impact assesses potential environmental effects of the land acquisitions. Factors such as habitat preservation, biodiversity, water quality, and carbon footprint are considered. The higher score, the greater the potential for positive environmental contributions and reduced ecological harm. As we've gone through a lot of our assessments in each one of your districts, we've learned that there's a lot of little critters in our creeks and streams that we didn't know were here that we can't do nothing with. So a lot of times that's challenging when we want to fix a flooding issue, but there's a South Carolina mud cricket that we can't disturb. So we have to find other ways around that. But those are things that if we don't look at or study, we don't know are there and could potentially bring some legal challenges to the county. Economic viability, obviously economic development, community development, the tax assessor's office. These are not inclusive of, but these would be the main organizations. But potential economic benefits associated with land acquisition, such as job creation, revenue, tourism potential, and long-term economic sustainability. So the score would reflect economic advantages and opportunities that the acquisition would bring to the county. Infrastructure compatibility, T&D, and building and maintenance. Once again, suitability of land. There's been numerous projects. We've gone and acquired land because it was free or cheap, only to find out through the phase 1 environmentals we can't build on it. So we have to shift and do something a little bit different. So hopefully this would fix a lot of those issues so that once you make a decision, it's a sound decision based off empirical data and we can move the project forward. Legal and financial considerations, obviously legal, finance, central services, and the land bank. Allie Jett and her firm, who currently represents the land bank, is a wealth of knowledge and helps us as we consider a lot of projects that are moving right now in the county. So they would inform the committee of any legal and financial aspects associated with the land acquisition to include compliance with zoning, land use, and any potential legal risk or challenges. A higher score would indicate compliance, and obviously a lower score would be indicative of some legal complications. Community benefit, Parks, Rec, Fire, Police, highlights the positive impact of the land acquisition on the local community. Factors such as public access, recreational opportunities, affordable housing, and cultural preservation are considered. Higher score indicates greater contribution to community well-being and quality of life. So next steps, we will be drafting a resolution for the 8/15 BOC meeting to formally create the Land Review Committee. Our next step, obviously, if approved, would be to solicit a representative from each agency that we've discussed this evening to serve on the committee. That committee's role will be to develop a plan of action with the land bank to evaluate and clear properties that hold no value to the county. And then, of course, start to assess opportunities for land assemblage based on direction from individual commissioner work plans that each of you have provided to the office of the COO. So that's kind of how we will drive our workload as we look at this committee. And with that, I'll yield for questions.
All right, any questions for Chief Marks?
Quickly, and you did answer about who the committee would be. Land Bank and you all. What's the difference? And whatever the difference is, I'm hoping that you all, the new committee, would be more of a conduit from the land bank to us, because we've had a couple questionable situations with the land bank where they were selling a piece of property that we didn't want sold in a certain area. And anyway, so hopefully you all can do that better and you know, communicate with us what's going on as far as what they're doing and what their concerns are. So
Yes,
what's
ma'am.
the difference though?
So precisely exactly what you said. Our goal here is to represent the will of the board, the work plan the board has put forth, and the development ideas and concerns that you have for your each individual respective district. A lot of the, as I said, a lot of the stuff that makes it to the land bank are either tax sales, distress sales, or other items. There's a whole nother side to that, as the COO alluded to, where we have residents reach out to us that want to donate property to the county, or, hey, is the county interested in buying this property? There's not a process in place by which a sound recommendation can be made to you as to, is there any net benefit to that happening? As we start looking at TOD development around the BRT lines, there's a lot of conversations around property values and around those BRT stops, and what do we want to see within those areas. So this community will start to look at that through our GIS opportunities and be able to provide you visualizations of why a property is either good or not good for you to look at. And this will be done hand in hand with the land bank, but as you stated, our goal is to represent you and be that conduit between the land bank and the Board of Commissioners through the COO's office. So hopefully we can clarify a lot of these issues and start to streamline those processes. Before properties make it into the land bank, we would like to work with Ally and say, okay, what is it the land bank is fixing to take ownership of? Because part of that is we have to now go maintain those properties. And in a lot of cases, if it's floodplain, that could be a substantial incurrence of monies to the county to maintain those properties. So we want to make sure we're understanding what that is, and that's coming to you before it becomes a liability to the county.
Good. I think that's very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, lastly, we will have a presentation on the backlog of evictions. Mr. Kevin Ross and Mr. Kelly James.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Kevin Ross, and I'm here with Kelly James, who is the president of R. James Property. And we're before you this evening to talk about a situation that we view as a crisis here in the county, as well as in several other counties, but of course we're here today to focus on Clayton. Let me share that we'll be making this evening a verbal presentation. I've been on a trial calendar up in Gwinnett County and just haven't had time yet to pull together something written. But following this presentation this evening, we will submit a written summary to you of some of the remarks we're sharing this evening. You know, the origin of the problem was the pandemic. As a result of the pandemic, for public health considerations, there was a moratorium declared on evictions nationwide. That moratorium was lifted in September of 2021. However, since the moratorium has been lifted, there have been a number of counties, and Clayton is one of them, where the eviction process has not returned to normal operations. And as a result, over time, there's a pretty enormous backlog in eviction cases, both in the courts and in the dispossessory process in terms of writs once they've been signed actually being executed. And what I want to share with you this evening are the four major problems that creates. Mr. James will speak after me, and he will share with you the specific sort of statistics and metrics related to his company, which is a fairly large apartment property owner here in Clayton. And keep in mind, as you're listening to Mr. James, that I'm here and he's here on behalf of his company, but the problems that we're describing apply to a number of large multifamily property owners in the county. The first major problem that this backlog is creating is what I would call a quality of life problem. Obviously, we all think in the eviction process of people who are not paying their rent. But another major aspect of evictions are people who are lease violators. And in most communities, the management knows and other residents knows who are violating leases, who are contributing to crime problems, who is basically reducing the quality of life for the overall community by their presence.
So when you have an eviction process that's backlogged, there's not a means to get the known lease violators out of the community for the benefit of others. The second thing is it creates major operational issues. Like most things, multifamily residential properties work on a financial model, and they count on the revenue from the rent to cover operational commitments, such as maintenance, repair, security, things of those sort. So if you get to a point that because you're not able to address people who aren't paying rent, you begin to see those monies shrink and the ability to deal with operational issues be affected. The third is that same thing eventually contributes to overall financial debt coverage issues. And after a period of time, if a company is not generating the revenue it expects, it then begins to run into situations where they may have problems meeting their mortgage commitments to their lenders. And in situations like that, and we've all seen it in various communities over our lives, if you have a property that becomes troubled, it goes back to the bank. Banks are generally not good managers of multifamily properties. And then you can see something that was once a very high quality property begin to descend and become something that's not so pleasant. The fourth problem is it actually impacts an issue that we all care about, which is affordable housing. Because as there are people out there who are looking for affordable housing, they need to have vacancies created that they then can move into. But if you get a point where people aren't paying, you can't remove them, that takes supply off of the market. The other way it affects supply is that there is a market out there that's generally been what you might call a second chance market. So if somebody's had credit problems and they don't have a perfect credit history, but they still need to rent, there's always been a part of the market that says we're going to give these people a second chance. But if those apartments are located in a county where they can't predictably dispossess when rent isn't paid, that market begins to shrink. So as a result, affordable housing that's available out there begins to become unavailable. So all of this leads to instability. And like I said, we view it as a crisis. We're before you this evening. We're looking to meet and have a request into the magistrate court to talk with them regarding their processes and regarding the execution of writs with the sheriff's office. But we wanted to bring it to your attention because as we envision it, it's a county-wide problem. Obviously, certain offices have their role in terms of addressing it. But we think to get the backlog reduced and get things back to normal functioning at some point in time may require a commitment of additional resources, budgetary resources, to address what may be some manpower issues. We all know the pandemic has created labor supply issues, and we think that may be part of the problem. We found that in another county where a lot of people left following the pandemic and they're struggling to train new people. But all in all, we want to try to get ahead of this curve before it becomes a problem that we're reading about because major properties have failed and we're seeing all the problems associated with that. So with those comments, let me turn it over to Mr. James to talk about his company and the problems that they're facing.
Good evening. My name is Kelly James. I'm the president of R. James Properties, Inc. And let me begin by saying I don't like evictions. No landlords like evictions. I didn't rent to anybody to evict them. My company motto is great apartment values, and we operate 5,400 units in the Atlanta area, including 2,100 in Clayton. Our motto is great apartment values, and we work very hard to provide clean, comfortable, affordable housing for our residents. And we've developed a reputation for cleaning up distressed properties. I've cleaned up several distressed properties here in Clayton recently, including Poplar Springs, Point South Townhomes, South Lake Cove, Vineyard Point, and it's my perception from speaking with police officers that they're very pleased that they're not getting nearly as many calls on these properties. In March, we took over the management of 500 distressed units in Clayton, and on the 1st of this month, we took over an additional 500 units in Clayton of very distressed properties. We're the dog that caught the truck, and the owner of these properties has indicated that he wants to hold them forever. He doesn't want to sell them, and he's indicated that he's willing to put millions of dollars into this investment to fix them. But to achieve success at these properties, our job has been made so much more difficult in the last 3 years because we, like Kevin said, we know who the troublemakers are, but we can't get them off the property. Of the 2,100 units we manage in Clayton, we have 144 evictions that owe more than $1.1 million. 8 of these residents owe more than $20,000 each. And one of these residents, I've got notes, just, you wouldn't believe how many notes. Troublemaker, can't control her kids, kicking indoors, and I can't get them off the property. Some of the same non-paying residents are also unable or unwilling to follow the rules. And landlords, we know who these troublemakers are, and lease violations don't carry any weight when these folks know that there's not the threat of eviction behind the lease violation. We will eventually achieve success at these properties, but it's going to take a lot longer with the slow evictions. And the folks that really suffer are our rent-paying, rule-following residents. Not to mention the fact that these non-paying folks take these affordable units off the market where we could rent them to other folks. And so I guess that's my piece, and I thank you for your attention to this urgent matter. So thank you.
Well, thank you both for that insightful information. Are there any questions for either gentleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis.
What units do you own in Clayton County, or what complexes do you own in Clayton County?
The properties that we own in Clayton County, we own South Lake Cove, Vineyard Point, Park Walk, Point South, and we recently took over the management in March of Arrowhead Townhomes and Retreat at Baywood. We took over August 1st, Woods on Terra and Hampton Downs, and I don't think I've forgotten any, but some of these properties they're pretty notorious.
You took over Woods on Terra when?
August 1st,
Of this year?
about 5 days ago, 6 days ago, something like that. It's
God bless you.
oh yeah,
Did you know what you was buying?
we've made great progress right up the street at Arrowhead Townhomes, and we'll
How long
achieve
have
the
you
same
had that
success.
How long have you had the Arrowhead property?
We took over March 1st, and that, I'll be honest, in my 15-year career, that's the roughest property I've ever taken over. And we're achieving success, but again, it's a rodeo.
Where are you headquarters?
We're in Atlanta.
You're in Atlanta?
All of our units are in Atlanta.
The headquarters of your R. James properties
In Atlanta.
in Atlanta, okay.
That Park Walk, is that Riverdale Road?
It is Garden Walk Boulevard.
Garden Walk, right.
So
yeah.
we're in College
It
Park,
looks
but
yeah, it looks
just on the border
Right.
with Riverdale.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So what's the ask
Yeah, what's the
of
ask?
us, of the commissioners?
I guess I'd appreciate y'all, I don't know, putting your
I
thinking
think
cap
it's
on
for
to
information. I don't know who asked.
I have
asked
two.
y'all to be
I
here.
have two asks. One is immediate, and one is probably just a little down the road. Is first,
I can say it a little bit louder.
I said I have two asks. One is immediate, and one is a little bit down the road. The first ask is that we would ask that you make an inquiry of the courts and the sheriff's office regarding the status of this situation, and have them share information with you about the statistics and what the circumstances are. And again, you know, we're also working in DeKalb, we're working in Fulton, and in DeKalb we're the furthest down the road. But one of the things that we've seen in both in that county is that both the marshal's office and the clerk's office need additional bodies to replace people that they lost during COVID, to try to address the backlog, because you know when you get a big backlog, even if you return to normal operations, if you haven't reduced the backlog, you're still behind. So at some point, we think budgetary resources, i.e. additional positions, might need to be funded. There may be a need for short-term staffing. We don't know enough right now because we haven't had a chance to meet yet with these other areas to see if we can gain more insight into what their problems are. But as we do, we may very well come back before you, or they may come to you and say, we need some additional staff in the short term to really get a handle on this situation.
So let me reassure you, I'm sorry, were you finished?
Well, you were summing it up. Well,
So
before
let me reassure you that both of those points, we have been cognizant of and have asked those very questions. The COO's office, as well as myself, have had numerous conversations with the chief magistrate judge, as well as the sheriff's office. And the sheriff's office, I believe, is a staffing issue as far as going out and actually being able to do the evictions. And again, that's what I've heard, so you speak to him directly. I don't want to speak out of turn for him. The chief magistrate, the same deal. And we have provided ARPA money to help them mitigate some of those cases and to be able to expedite some of those proceedings. Now, truly, you're on the right path. You need to get with them, see what else they can do from their perspective, from their positions, and it's a real problem.
Right.
What you have said is very true. There are problems. Everybody in any apartment complex can point to where the troubled people are. And until you can get rid of those people, you're going to continue to have problems from a law enforcement perspective. So we're on board, and we're listening and working with the chief magistrate judge as well as the sheriff to try to make sure that we are not putting out good people, but helping those who need help, but those who need to go, I agree, need to go.
Thank you.
Can I say something? Yeah, let me say this too, because I've received several complaints from different people. And what's our guy name that owns those duplexes and all up in College Park?
The duplexes?
Yeah, Mr.
I know you're talking
He sends emails all the time about, people living, and they know how to work the system and all, and that's basically what they've been doing. They pay enough for, anyway, they know how to work the system. And we really do need to continue to work with our magistrate office, judge office, and I guess they work with the sheriff's office, I don't know.
Right.
But we get something, I think every week, and I
do.
know
She
you all
gives
get
us-
it
she
too.
gives us a report.
And you all get it too, because
provides
he's just so frustrated, because his thing is, that's his livelihood. And if they aren't paying him, then again, like one of you said, then he can't pay his bills, kind of thing. So hopefully we will, just whatever we can do, Mr. COO, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, or whatever.
Okay.
Get a
Well,
push on
we
that.
will have those other meetings, and then, depending upon how those come along, we may try to be on your next work session agenda to give you an update.
Yeah, let me say this too. It's not about the evictions though, but about one of your students that now works for us. One of your prior students, right? Mr. Reed, was that your instructor at one time?
So he's the one we need to talk. He's the one we need to talk to about you.
Yeah.
He missed a couple of courses.
We saw each other, I think, when I was here earlier this year with the parking company. But yeah, one of my distinguished students, and I taught at Emory for 5 years, so I have quite a few distinguished students around the metro area. And you've got one of them. Thank you.
I do have one last comment, please, sir. One last comment. If,
For me? For
Mr.
us?
James, if we could get your card, because several of those complexes are in my district, and I would like to take a look at them periodically. Let's just put it like that.
I'll just write it down. I don't have one of my cards.
Chuck has the information.
Okay, any other questions
Reed,
while
I'm
he's
sorry.
writing that? They can do that afterward. All right, hearing none, thank you, sir. That is the end of our work session discussion items, and we stand adjourned. Thank you.